there on the last live stream, but I'd had it on my iPhone, and my father had called, and we're going to we had to get some things situated about the move. And yes, I'm staying in Mississippi, same state, but I'm moving from Hattiesburg, Mississippi to Brandon, Mississippi in actually 2 weeks. So yeah, that is what's going down. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some subjects cleared up. And what I was talking about earlier before the stream, before I had abruptly end the stream, was to please subscribe to Chris Wyatt Africa. They have about 400. He has about 452 subscribers right now. YouTube, I firmly believe, did him wrong and canceled the Indaba Africa channel, but he's back with a new channel. And he is doing live streams and doing videos, not as much as he's done before, but he is still doing live streams and he's still doing videos. So I'm going to go ahead and get the copy. Cameron Engelbrecht says, "Hey, Brett, how are you?" Doing well, Cameron. Thank you for asking. Hope all is going well with you as well. So nice to see you again, Cameron. So just hang on 1 second and go ahead and get this copied and get this sent out to Telegram groups, Chris Wyatt Africa, and to Hendo and several other groups. Okay, Chris Wyatt's Telegram group. All right, okay, and then I'm gonna get this sent to Rebellious Ruth's Telegram group as well. I'm streaming at the moment. Okay, now I know I disagree with a lot of you guys compared to the COVID situation. I'm just going to explain what is happening in Mississippi right now. Okay, over the weekend, when people typically go out and they typically go eat, our governor, Tate Reeves, has ended a lot of mask mandates, except for the public school system. Okay, but here is the thing. Since the mask mandate has been lifted, over the weekend, Mississippi had 500 new COVID-19 cases and 8 new COVID-19 related fatalities. Now let me explain what is going on, okay? Like when I went to the pharmacy today to pick up some medicine for myself, okay, I was the only patron in there wearing a mask. None of the other patrons and none of the other workers were wearing a mask. And I firmly believe that that is a problem in regards to the COVID-19. Also, the thing is, it's not the vaccine that's the problem. What the problem is that people are not using the vaccine properly. When you have the Pfizer vaccine, you get it injected and you have about 75 to 80% immunity, but after 10 to 14 days, it's not like when you get the first injection and you can go out and about. You can't do it like that. That's not how it works. Now, and then you go about a month, 3 weeks to a month later, you get the second vaccine, and then you have to wait about 10 to 14 days before you're 95% immune to the virus. Now, Johnson & Johnson, you get one injection, and then you have to wait 7 days before you're about 75 to 80% immune from the COVID-19. That is why Mississippi has okayed the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in spite of a chance of getting blood clots. Now, the chance of somebody getting blood clots from the Johnson & Johnson vaccine are less than 1 in a million. I've discussed that before, but the reason Mississippi has okayed it, I firmly believe, is because people are not getting the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines properly. They're not quarantining and taking the proper precautions for the 10 to 14 days. It takes 10 to 14 days for the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine to take effect. That is just the reality of how those vaccines work. Now, but I will say this, since the mask mandate has been lifted, COVID-19 cases have shot up in the state of Mississippi. I can say that. That's what's been reported, and I live here. That is what's going on in the state of Mississippi with COVID-19. So that is what's going on, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about. Now, Chris Wyatt had talked about South African Airways being bankrupt. Being lifted out of bankruptcy. Let me explain how this is just ridiculous. What this does mean is more government funds have been poured into South African Airways. And what is going to happen is the South African government in and of itself is already bankrupt. And many South Africans, because of COVID-19, are restricted from traveling. So nobody just miraculously gets lifted out of bankruptcy like that. What happened was the South African government poured more funds into it, and the South African government is already in a huge deficit. They poured money into more money into the South African Airways than they could afford to do, and most South African Airways flights are being grounded due to people not being able to travel to and from South Africa due to the COVID-19. So it did not miraculously recover from bankruptcy. This is just ridiculous, and this has basically, it's just going to put South Africa more into debt and more into it, the government more into a deficit. I'm not believing this because, like, Reuters has a headline says, South African Airways exits administration after 17 months. What the article says here is South Africa's struggling national airline, South African Airways, on Friday exited a local form of bankruptcy protection called business rescue after roughly 17 months. This was basically government rescue. South African Airways was placed under administration in December of 2019, and its long-standing financial woes worsened during the COVID-19 pandemic. All operations were mothballed in September of 2020. Its administrators said in a statement that they had filed a notice of substantial implementation of a business rescue plan with South African companies and Intellectual Property Commission. That meant that they had, and they got this in quotes, effectively discharged the business rescue and handed over the operations of SAA back to its board and executive team, adding SAA was now solvent. The airline is one of a handful of South African state companies that depend on government bailouts, placing the budget under huge strain at a time of rapidly rising debt. And that's basically true. The Department of Public Enterprises, the ministry responsible for South African Airways, said the government was in the final stages of negotiations with a preferred equity partner for South African Airways. The purchase and sale agreement should be concluded in the next few weeks. This will enable capital and much needed technical and commercial expertise to be brought in to ensure a competitive flag carrier emerges, it said in a statement. Neither the administrators nor the DP said when SAA might resume flights. This is not going to go over well. In case you have not realized this is not going to go over well for anybody. Cameron says, all is well on my side. Apparently here in South Africa, we're experiencing wave 3. Yeah, the COVID pandemic's just a problem everywhere. And I don't know if too many of y'all, I know some Indian South Africans. I knew them when I was in South Korea. Some of them were English teachers. And the one that I was friends with the closest, I'm not going to name names, but I am going to say that she has never been to India. She considers herself South African, but her father is tied deeply into India. He's a Christian pastor in Durban, and he goes to India, has been to India several times on mission trips. And her father seems to be deeply devastated by the situation of the COVID-19 in India. Now, I'm going to say this, okay? This is where Prime Minister Modi, who heads India, the liberal media in America is just bashing him, and they are really, really just dogging him with the COVID-19. Now, the mistake he made, not experiencing but expecting, and I wouldn't put it past the ANC is not, living by their examples, and they've got a lot of ridiculous measures in the lockdown. Okay, Prime Minister Modi had a lockdown that was very effective for India, particularly since India is a smaller country landmass-wise compared to its population of 1.3 billion people. Some statistics say 1.4 billion people. Well, when the lockdown was implemented, the COVID-19 didn't spread very much, but India entered an economic recession and they had a bad economic crisis. So India was forced to reopen and go back to work. I mean, they had to keep their economy back floating. Well, when that happened, when the economy went back floating, then the COVID-19 naturally spread. And so this is not really the fault of Prime Minister Modi. He had a strict lockdown in place, which he followed himself, by the way. And then the COVID-19 was under control, but then when people had to go back to work to keep the economy afloat, then it spread. So he was kind of in a lose-lose situation. This was just a situation that was really kind of beyond Prime Minister Modi's control. with the COVID-19. But India has so many people per square mile. 132 Gearhead says, "Hey Brett from Florida, love your live streams. What part of Florida?" 132 Gearhead. I'm a fan of Florida. I've been all over the state. I've been to Miami, been to Key West, been to Tampa, been to Destin, Sandestin, Pensacola. Florida is one of my favorite states that I like to visit. Particularly since I like the beach. I mean, sometimes I don't like resting on the beach. When I was a kid, I really didn't like relaxing on the beach, but I liked doing parasailing. I liked going snorkeling, scuba diving. I also like the Disney World theme parks, Universal Studios. Florida is one of my all-time favorite states that I've been to. So I love the state of Florida. So what part of Florida you typing in from? So thank you very much for the kind words. So that is what's going on. And South African Airways is grounded, but yet they got out of bankruptcy. That doesn't add up. This just does not add up with and it's not going to go over well for anybody. And Naples, visiting with folks from Colorado, gotcha. But no, I've never actually been to Naples, Florida, but I hear it's very, very nice. So yeah. So I need to make it a point to go visit Naples, Florida. So, okay, so that's the latest on the news with India. The latest on the news with India is that the COVID-19 is just becoming a drastic problem. You can give to UNICEF. Some people don't trust the United Nations, and a lot of times I don't, but I really do think with UNICEF, I just have a hunch, but I have a hunch that UNICEF is going to be okay this time. And the money is going to get where it needs to be. Hospital, like there are hotel ballrooms and reception rooms that are being converted into temporary hospitals in India right now. There are hospitals denying COVID-19 patients just because they don't have enough room for them. And COVID-19 patients are also dying due to lack of oxygen because they're running low on oxygen supplies. So it is just a bad situation for that. Okay. Now, here is where South Africa, now this is not the government's fault easing lockdown restrictions, but rhino poaching is back. Rhino poaching is on the rise again in South Africa. And I am not, I'm not an animal rights advocate, but I do know that in South Africa, the lion is in being endangered. And I hunted deer as a kid and stuff. I don't mind hunting, and because you had, for deer in America, you had to hunt them to be preserved, or they were going to die out eating all the grass that they would do. So if they would eat all the grass, and there would not be enough grass for all the deer. That's the way deer operate. So you would have to kill a few deer here and there in order to preserve the species long term. But from what I hear, what's going on in South Africa with the rhino, with the elephants, and with the rhino, the elephants, and the lions, that there is so much excess hunting that they're going to be endangered. And what I will say is the way the lions eat the zebras and the wildebeest, if there's an overpopulation of wildebeest and zebras, then there'll be no more grass, and then the zebras and the wildebeest will slowly die out. So many South Africans across the board, conservative, liberal, moderate, they want the rhino poaching under control, and they want the lion hunting under control, and they want the elephant hunting under control. But I've talked to other South Africans who say their economy's in the tank, and there are many people from America and Canada and the UK and many other countries that pay thousands of dollars to come hunt wild game. And if the environmentalists do this now, South Africa's economy is going to be worse than what it is. So I don't have a personal opinion on this one way or the other, but it is a sad situation when poaching is going on. And a lot of that rhino poaching, honestly, has gone on from Chinese ambassadors and visitors and North Korean ambassadors and visitors. They've been taking the rhino horns and ivory tusk and using them for wild game trophies, but as well as medicine in Asia. And that is a problem. North Koreans have been hunting in Namibia and in South Africa for a long, long time, and then they take the rhino horns and then they sell them for big bucks on the black market. That goes on all the time. All right, but here's what the article states. Rhino poaching is on the rise again in South Africa since the government loosened coronavirus restrictions following a year-long lull due to the pandemic. The strict limits on travel, including international travel, imposed in March last year had the happy side effect of keeping poachers at bay, which is true, which I was glad that happened. In 2020, 394 rhinos were poached. 30% fewer than the year before, and the lowest yearly tally since 2011, which I'm happy about. But then South Africa began easing international travel restrictions in November. Since November, December last year, and into 2021, the landscape, and particularly Kruger National Park, has been experiencing serious numbers of rhino poaching incidents, says Joe Shaw of the African Rhino League for WWF International Network. WWF, not the wrestling organization WWE that used to be WWF. This is the Wildlife Federation, World Wildlife Federation. She declined to say how many incidents had occurred, but she also said this is a very real and realized threat as poaching pressure has increased since lockdown, perhaps to meet the demand for international markets. Now, these are not people coming from America. I can say this, these are not people coming from America because Biden has banned travel to and from South Africa. If they're coming from America, they're coming illegally because Americans are not supposed to go to South Africa due to the COVID-19 pandemic that is going on in South Africa. So they're not coming from America, but they may be coming from other nations. They're obviously coming from other nations. Rhino poaching often involves both local poachers and international criminal syndicates. A lot of times they're Chinese and North Koreans that smuggle the high-value commodity across borders, often to Asia, where demand is high. I can tell you this does not go on with South Koreans very much or Japanese. Typically, this goes on with Chinese and North Koreans. South Korea wants to keep a good relationship with South Africa and not engage in that kind of activity because of what South Africa did for South Korea in the Korean War. I can tell you that because I lived in South Korea for over 2 years. Rhino poaching, I just said that, their methods are cruel. Rhinos are sometimes shot with tranquilizer gun before the horn is hacked off, resulting in the animal being left to bleed to death. An organization called Save the Rhinos said that on the website. Other rhinos are often killed with high-power hunting rifles before the horn is removed, said Julian Redemeyer, director of the Organized Crime Observatory for East and Southern Africa at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. Reserves, which have been battling tighter budgets amid coronavirus-induced lull in tourism, have also been forced to cut back on anti-poaching patrols, compounding the threat to rhinos. Some reserves use dehorning as a way to prevent armed poachers from taking advantage of easier cross-border travels. Veterinarians, now these are trained veterinarians cut the horn at the stub rather than removing it all, which prevents the rhino from bleeding to death. Balula Nature Reserve, located in the Greater Kruger system, has dehorned 100 rhinos since April 2009. Cage hunting is better than wild animals being slaughtered. I would tend to disagree with that. At least, I would feel guilty killing a deer or a turkey in a cage. The big hunting down here is deer hunting or turkey hunting. At least in the wild, they have a shot. But rhinos are different, okay? Even though rhinos can run at like 30 miles an hour and they're very big creatures, if a rhino sees a water hole, they stop at the water hole and they drink. They get thirsty very easily. And so rhinos are fairly easy to poach, from what I've heard. Okay, South Africa has about 16,000 rhinos located within its borders. But relentless poaching and drought in the northeast region has hit the rhino population hard. In the Kruger National Park, the number of rhinos has plummeted almost more than 2/3 in the last decade to around 3,800 in 2019 from 11,800 rhinos in 2008, South African National Parks report showed. And that's just a sad situation, and I hope the South African government gets this rhino poaching under control. But I will say this, as high as rhino horns are in demand for medicine in China and North Korea, if you just allow China to keep coming in and taking over your country, that rhino poaching is going to increase. And China, 90% of North Korea's trade is with China. So if you allow North Koreans to keep coming in like that, that's going to happen. South African authorities have stopped North Koreans before at the airport with dozens of rhino horns in their suitcases. That has happened before. That's a documented situation. Like I said, that is just a common situation, okay? All right, now here, okay, you guys know that I disagree with y'all on the vaccine, but I don't agree with the South Africa regulator on this one. I would advise if women are pregnant, they should not take the COVID-19 vaccine. My cousin and her husband, they had been very, very careful with the COVID-19 vaccine. With the COVID-19, and were very careful about who they were around, social distancing, all these other things. And her husband got the vaccine pretty quickly. But when she was pregnant, she didn't get it. I believe she got it after she had her child. But I don't believe pregnant women should be getting the vaccine. But South Africa's drug regulator says different. And this is according to Yahoo News. Now, I highly disagree with this. I would not recommend that pregnant women get the vaccine. But this came out of Yahoo News. South Africa's drug regulator has said that Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine can be given to pregnant women with comorbidities, or at high risk of contracting the coronavirus. I agree, 132 Gearhead, definitely not pregnant women. The South African Health Ministry said that previously said pregnant and breastfeeding women should be excluded from the local research study of evaluating Johnson & Johnson's vaccines efficacy. The research study shows, which aims to immunize 500,000 health workers, resumed on Wednesday after it was temporarily suspended. All right, first of all, that vaccine should have never been suspended, but definitely not. Pregnant women should be getting the vaccine, I believe, because the chances of one getting blood clots from this are less than 1 in a million. Okay, but the vaccine has been resumed, which I do support. Many of you guys disagree with me on this, but at the same time, I don't believe it's okay for pregnant women to be getting this vaccine. Okay, but in recommendations posted on the website on Thursday, the regulator said pregnant women who have comorbidities are at high risk of exposure to COVID-19, like health workers, may be vaccinated in consultation with their health care provider. I would recommend getting a second opinion on that. I definitely do not think that pregnant women should be getting the vaccine. Now, granted, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist, but I firmly believe that pregnant women should not be getting the COVID-19 vaccine, even if it is Johnson & Johnson. And it also goes on to say women who are breastfeeding should be counseled on the absence of information in this regard, and a benefit risk assessment should be made by enrolling clinic. All right, I firmly believe that if a woman is breastfeeding, I recommend that you consult to a doctor and get 2 or 3 opinions before you go get vaccinated. And if you're pregnant, I recommend the same thing, but I recommend if a woman is pregnant and are breastfeeding, that's where I kind of draw the line and really don't believe somebody should be vaccinated unless 2 or 3 different doctors okay it and have the same opinion. That's my personal opinion on that. Okay, but this goes on to say, and finally, Yahoo News speaks the truth about how this ANC lockdown has been ineffective. The worst hit country on the African continent, which is South Africa, in terms of reported coronavirus infections and deaths, has so far vaccinated over 307,000 health workers with Johnson & Johnson shot while it waits for its first batch of commercial doses to become available. Now, the thing is, in South Africa, it's not the vaccine that's the problem, and I'm going to explain this, okay? They're in a bind because South Africa, because of the ANC embezzling money, has a shortage of healthcare workers and quality healthcare centers. And this includes healthcare workers. If healthcare workers get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, they're supposed to quarantine, or they're supposed to be very, very cautious for a week before the vaccine takes effect. If they get the vaccine and go back to work the next day, they're still at risk. If they get Pfizer or Moderna vaccines, then they need to quarantine for 10 days and then go get the second injection 28 days later. Not quarantine, but use extreme caution. And then after getting the second injection, they have to go use extreme caution for another 14 days. So if they're injecting the healthcare workers, but then putting the healthcare workers back on the front line with the COVID-19 the next day or the next hour after they get the vaccine, that's ineffective. Now, it goes on to say South Africa has ordered over 31 million doses of Johnson & Johnson's 1-shot vaccine and 30 million doses of Pfizer's 2-shot vaccine, enough for a combined 46 million of its 60 million people, and is counting on them to ramp up immunizations after a slow start. Okay, I firmly believe that women who are pregnant and women who are breastfeeding, they need to get consultations from about 2 or 3 different doctors saying that it's okay. I don't agree with South Africa's decision on this one. I firmly don't. Now, granted, like I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but if you're going to vaccinate the healthcare workers, then you're going to need to have enough healthcare workers to rotate the situation, because somebody who gets the vaccine but then goes out back on the front line combating the COVID the very next day, that's not going to be an effective situation. The Johnson & Johnson takes 7 days to take effect. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines take almost a month if you combine the two dosage. I've had the Pfizer vaccine. It took me almost a month before I was 95% immune from the COVID-19. And my brother was the same way when he got the Moderna vaccine. So I just don't, like I said, I just don't believe that that is an effective thing to be going on, So that's basically what's going on in South Africa, and that's just another example of South Africa's broke and ineffective public health care system, which has not been good for South Africa. Now, okay. Now, Namibia, corruption can be an issue, but in Namibia, figured corruption was less than in South Africa, but Namibia, with the current way SWAPO is going, they're becoming about as bad as South Africa in some ways. This is an article from the Namibian. A bank manager is set to appear in the Swakopmund Magistrate Court today, following her arrest for the theft of $1,106,000 Namibian dollars that took place last week at Arandis. The 47-year-old Standard Bank employee, according to the police's crime report, initially took 800,000 Namibian dollars from the bank's safe and handed it to an unknown suspect who had promised to double the money. It is further alleged that last Friday during lunch, the suspect was again called by the same person and was requested to deposit an additional amount of 306,000 Namibian dollars into a bank Windhoek account number, which was sent to her via SMS, which she allegedly did. No cash has been recovered and investigations continue. Namibia is going down a bad road in regard, same as South Africa with that kind of corruption. And that is just sad situation. Unfortunately, it's a sad situation, sad state of affairs if that is going on. And that is just, like I said, that's just a sad situation with what is happening in Namibia. And the only way that is going to change in Namibia is if SWAPO gets unelected, if SWAPO gets unelected out of power, and that changes. I firmly believe that nothing's going to change until SWAPO gets unseated. I don't believe they're an anti-white organization very much, but I do believe that they have a lot of communist socialist policies that have been ineffective for the country of Namibia. I firmly believe that, like I said, that's what I firmly believe, okay? And, yeah, so that's that. All right, well, look, I'm going to end the stream. The reason is because Chris Wyatt is streaming now, and I don't want to interfere with the streams. I didn't know he was going to stream later today. But I'm going to go on to his stream. So thank you guys for tuning in. Almost 30 minutes. Thanks for the 3 likes right here. Much appreciated. And so basically, yeah, I was against the mask mandate being lifted in Mississippi because I believe too many people are scared of the vaccine, and then people are not taking the vaccine properly. And since the mask mandate has been lifted, we had over 500 new cases this past weekend and 8 new COVID-19 deaths. Those are just the statistics. I'm not trying to convince you otherwise. The situation in India is much worse with the COVID-19, obviously, and it is, regardless of what you think about the COVID-19, we need to keep India in our prayers. So, hope everybody is doing well. Take care. God bless them. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.